friendly Yvette here with Just Swallow the Pill. Welcome back and welcome to this week's episode. I am happy you were able to join me today. So I hope you guys also are having a great week. I know my week has been crazy. Just to kind of let you guys in on my life a little bit, I am moving from Las Vegas to Phoenix in like 3 days, and I haven't packed not one thing. So wish me luck, and I hope you all have a great weekend. And I know I'm gonna have a busy weekend, but I'm excited. I'm gonna be back home in Phoenix with all my friends and all my faves. So with that said, again, thank you for taking the time out to listen. I know you guys have busy schedules. So we're going to jump right into this week's episode. So just to do a brief recap, last week I talked about, what did we talk about last week? Oh, the 7 stages of grief. And I told you guys about how experts do compare losing a spouse to death and losing a spouse in a divorce. They compare them, and they're not the exact same, but they do have similarities when it comes to the grieving and the mourning process, where you go through the same things. And so if you missed that episode, if you have time, go back and check it out. I was sharing some really, really good information about the 7 stages of grief. So this week, however, we're going to talk about moving on. And I actually spoke to 2 of our viewers about moving on, and we had in-depth conversations about their process and how they moved on, and compared to my process and how I decided to move on. Now, jumping right into it, so the viewers that I spoke with, they are actually close friends of mine. They're not complete strangers. So I know a little bit of their stories, but I never asked them about their process, which, you know, when you're friends, you just get caught up in being friends. You don't actually ask them about their process. So even with me doing this show, I shed light on a lot of my friends. They had no idea that I had been through what I had been through. I mean, of course, everybody knew I was divorced, but nobody knew the exact process that I took to get to where I am today. Now, as far as moving on goes, I want you guys to know that I am 3 years out of this divorce. I am 3 years on my journey. Okay, so this stuff did not happen overnight for me. At least some people, I think it does. I know for myself, it did not. And actually, I'm not even going to say for some people it does. People want it to happen overnight. And so because they want it to happen overnight, they skip steps. And that eventually leads them right back to where they started. And so that's the whole point of me doing this with you guys. I don't want you guys to miss any steps. I want you guys to really take your time with healing, take your time with moving on, however that looks. Simply because if you are not healed properly, you really do take that stuff into the next relationship. And when you take that stuff to the next relationship, you start bleeding on somebody else who didn't even cut you. Okay? And so no one deserves that. So jumping right into our first story of moving on. So actually, both of our stories are women. Okay? And one woman broke up with her significant other. And so I thought that was kind of unique with her moving on process. And the other woman, she's the one who was broken up with. Okay, and so 2 different perspectives on moving on, but they kind of, you know, are the same in, again, some ways. There are similarities in every situation. And so starting with our first moving on story, what I found in her story is that she actually checked out beforehand. And I thought that that was very unique because I personally have never done that before. I've never thought about breaking up with someone before it actually happened, or I've never checked out of a relationship. I'm sure there was times where I thought about not wanting to be with someone, but I've never actually moved on while I'm with someone. And so that's what happened in this situation. She said she checked out. She checked out. And a lot of times in those situations where we check out, all we need is a reason at that point. You're just waiting for something to happen, and boom, bada bing, bada boom, it blows up. And so that's what happened. All it took was one fight, and she said, I need a break. And so with that break, she really wanted to assess the situation. Now, she actually took her time. She didn't want to break up because of this particular fight. She wanted to take a minute, remove her emotions from the situation, and then from there, make the decision. So that's what she did. She took her time, thought about it, and realized that being there in that relationship just wasn't healthy for her. And so at that point, she did decide to move on. It wasn't anything that happened suddenly. It was definitely a very well thought out process for her. And one of the things that she said that she did after the fact to heal was go into a reflection period. Now, that was actually very interesting to me, and it was very, I guess it was a learning experience for me, because I always had the misconception that if you're the person breaking up with someone, you just break up and then move on to the next person. Okay. I didn't really know that people really reflected when they're the ones that broke up with the other person. So she did a deep reflection on herself. She looked at the role that she played, and that's something that I talked about in one of our earlier episodes. We all play roles in situations. And so she looked at her role in the situation, and then decided that, there were some things that she will do again and some things that she won't do again. Elevate and then keep it moving. And so that's what happened. She took a 3-month period from dating. She also dove into spending time with friends, spending quality time with family, and getting into herself, that self-care that we also love. She decided to start exercising, and so that's what she did. And so that was her process of moving on. Now, another piece of moving on is getting closure. And a lot of us don't get it right away. A lot of times it happens after the fact, and sometimes it doesn't happen at all. And I think closure is a vital part of moving on. And so about a year or two after the breakup happened, she actually had an opportunity to speak with him and talk about what happened. And she was able to share some things that she realized during her reflection period, and which was that she could have been more communicative about her needs and her wants. And she assumed that he knew those things. But again, hindsight is always 20/20. And that's something that she realized again on the journey along the way. Okay, so that's our first viewer. Now, our second viewer, when it comes to moving on, she was not completely shocked about it, but it's definitely something that still kind of stung. And there was also this song and dance of, are we going to get back together? Are we not? Are we going to get back together? Are we not? And so they were still kind of spending time together. And so even though they weren't together, the moving on actually did not happen right away, even though they were broken up. And then finally, when the moving on actually happened, that's when she decided to take the rebound approach. And a lot of people take that approach. I personally feel like it's a distraction from what healing is all about. And so when you bring someone else in, of course it appeases those immediate feelings. But again, if you don't deal with these things, they're gonna come right back around. And quite naturally, you start to take things from your previous relationship into your next relationship with this particular rebound. And so that's sort of what happened. And after quite some time, realizing that this rebound approach wasn't working, she looked up and her ex was in what appeared to be a whole happy situation. And so with that said, at that point, she said, maybe I need to work on myself. And so she started working on herself and she dove into work. She decided, let me get my money up. And so she dove into work, and that's how she decided to move on. And next thing you know, that led to her next relationship. So there are benefits to focusing on yourself. I know for me, how I can honestly say for me, I didn't even really know what moving on meant. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't realize that moving on is going to look different for each individual person. And of course, people tell you to move on, but they can't tell you how. Okay? And so I had to find something that worked for me. And what worked for me was getting involved in a nonprofit organization. And I surrounded myself around all these positive Black people that were professionals, and they were out here doing things for the community. And I dove into that and I ate that up. And I have met some wonderful people through that experience who are still in my life to this day, and they are amazing, and they don't even understand the role that they played in my life to help me move on from such a traumatic experience. And so that's what moving on looked like for me. I also later on down the line decided to get back into dancing. I love dance. And so that's what I do now for my self-care. I dance, and if you follow me on Instagram, I posted some of my Zumba videos. I think I just have 2 up there, but that's just what I do. That helps me relieve this extra stress, helps me get rid of that negative energy. And so again, whatever moving on means to you, you got to do it and stick to it. And try different things. I did not initially come across this nonprofit organization, nor that I think that it was going to be something that was going to help me move on, but it did. And before that, I tried many things. I tried reading. I tried going to the gym, like gym membership. I tried jogging. Everybody talks about doing different things. So I tried to do different things, and those things just did not work for me. So if you do have someone in your life that is stuck, or if you yourself is stuck, try different things as far as moving on goes. Moving on doesn't necessarily mean filling that void with another person. That's not moving on. That's called distracting. And we don't want you to be distracted. We want you to heal completely. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to do this channel, because I want to show you guys how to move on while healing yourself. That doesn't have anything to do with anybody else romantically. Okay? Now, one of the things that we do to move on is getting rid of old things. Okay, and that's going to lead me to my first viewer question. So when we try to move on, or one of the first things that we do when we move on is get rid of things that remind us of that person. We get rid of pictures, we burn clothes, we get rid of clothes, we get rid of letters, we get rid of cards, we delete pictures off our social media. We do several things to try to just, so we're not reminded of that person. And so our first viewer question says, Dear Brandy, I love watching your show. My question for you is, why did you decide to keep your married name? Okay, so that was actually something that I got a lot of heat for. I was accused of not moving on because I decided to keep my married name. Now, one of the reasons why I decided to keep my married name was because I fought so hard through this struggle, through this darkness, to become the person that I am today. And during the time of reflection, because I also took a lot of time to reflect, I reflected on who I used to be, that girl that I was before I got married. And I didn't remember who she was. I didn't remember who she was. I didn't remember what she was like. And I could no longer identify with her. Didn't know who she was. But the person that I was at the time, and I'm going to say it that way because I'm not her anymore either. The person that I was at the time had stuck through this fight. And so the decision to change my name actually did not happen until about 3 to 4 months after I left my ex-husband and the divorce was final. So the divorce wasn't final right away. It took some months for that to become final. And at that point, I could have taken the paperwork to get my last name changed. But at that time, I had done so much life work just within that short period of time. Again, I just could not identify with that girl I used to be. And I had fought the fight. I had fought the fight of my life from February 2016 all the way up until that point. And I had fought so much that I was like, no, I fought to become me. This is my name. I fought for this. And so the funny thing is, I don't think about my ex-husband when people call me by my last name. I don't think about my ex-husband when I write my name. When I see my last name, when I write my last name, when someone says my last name, I'm proud. I'm proud of the woman that I came to be. I grew into it. I had a vision of who I wanted to be, and back then, and seeing myself today, 3 years later, I've grown into that woman, and I'm continuously reinventing myself. So that is why I have chosen to keep my married last name. And again, I know for some of you guys, that's a little weird because, again, who wants to keep a name of somebody who put them through so much? But I have become this amazing person because of that. I'm not the victim here. No way. I have become a queen. And I'm forever grateful to my ex-husband. He will always have a special place because he helped me become this amazing person that I didn't even know existed. I didn't know this person lived in me until this situation happened. And so again, that's why I have decided to keep my married last name. All right, you guys, that is it for this week's episode. Stay tuned next week. I'm coming back with more viewer questions. Don't forget to like, comment, and share. Just swallow the pill. Share me. Tell everybody that somebody is there to support them if they are going through a difficult breakup and or a divorce. If you have a question for me or you want to know something about my process, email me at thedifficultpill@gmail.com. And as I always say, y'all say it with me, your crown is not on your head, it is in your soul. Thank you guys so much for joining me, and we will see you guys next week.
Guess that I was wrong.